Our second speaker is a known veteran for ODOT, and Mr. Ken Hobson. He is an OU grad, and when he retired from your materials division, he became a researcher for Professor Zaman and his team. And he has been very active in professional activities and also in research himself for years. And he is going to present a very interesting topic, forensic investigation of payments in Oklahoma. So without further ado, Ken, it's your show here.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. What I want to present today is lessons that we've learned from forensic investigations on pavements in Oklahoma. We use a lot of acronyms in asphalt. PMSG simply means OU's Pavement Materials and Systems Group. And I'm going to talk about forensic investigations. And a lot of times we see definitions of things we talk about. We go to the dictionary. If you look up forensic investigations, it's usually something along the lines of a judicial investigation. And you think of forensic, you think, well, that probably means something's dead. And when I go out and investigate pavements, no one ever says, hey, Ken, can you come out and look at this great pavement we just laid? I don't get that. Usually I get, when I was at ODOT, they said, Ken, we had a problem, come tell us what went wrong, how to fix it. So that's usually what I do. And when we do these forensic investigations, we've done them through OU, through the ODOT task order process, and I'll explain that. It's a pretty simple process. Explain what we've done in our past and current task orders, some investigative tools that we use. I'm going to cite one case. We only have a short time here. Normally I take an hour to go over an investigation. So we'll just look at this one project we did on US 412 for ODOT, and then we'll sum up what I discussed. But whatever you do, keep an open mind. I remember one of the definitions I had for civil engineering when I was at OU. They said, civil engineering is the art and science of problem solving. So luckily I have a degree in art and I have a degree in science, so maybe I know a little bit. Okay, there's our group in 2016 when I first joined the team. We have more members now, but you can go to that web page if you want to kind of look at some of those things we've done. When I was at ODOT, we developed a test standard. Normally at national levels we have AASHTO, ASTM, and then a lot of those really start in the development at maybe a state level. So Oklahoma Highway Department. When I developed this standard, I was looking for something. I wanted more structure. And the guide there is in the link. And there's basically 3 levels of investigation. You might have the local, or what we call the district levels. The state, the ODOT Materials Division would look at these. And I did a lot of those. And we even did, when I was at ODOT, a level 3 where we had FHWA come out and assist us, and we actually trenched an I-40 pavement out District 5. And I don't recommend doing that, but you can learn a lot from a trench. And we do trenches out at the NCAT test track all the time because they close the road. But for safety reasons, you generally don't want to do that. So the investigations we normally do at OU are a little bit more involved than what I did at ODOT because we have a more access to different technologies than I did when I was there. Plus, another reason, I'll explain these a little bit, we just didn't have the personnel and the time to do that. We were more production oriented. So on a level 3, we do a preliminary investigation, visual analysis, pavement core sampling. Well, nobody likes destructive cores, but nothing like a core to really tell you the health of the pavement. Pavement slabs, like I said, we don't like trenching, but that is a valuable tool if you really need to. Generally what I do when you trench, you pull a string line, you look at the deflection, and is it a subgrade problem or is it actually a problem in the asphalt construction layer? So that's good to know. Geotechnical investigation base, well, remember I said open mind. I look at everything that I can, following the guidelines in what I'm going to show you in a little bit, but I want to start from the bottom up, right? We build a house with a foundation, so I want to look at the foundation first. And then we have these tools, non-destructive, that are nice. I don't like poking holes in the pavement more than anyone else, FWD, GPR, et cetera. Okay, here's, in that OHDL procedure, I referenced this NCHRP report 747. Isn't it nice how we dovetail these presentations today? And the things that we do for the NCHRP, this is one of the things that we implement. And I find I used a lot of other guides when I did investigations. If you read this report, you'll have 90% of what I know. So that's a good science part of this. Okay, so I found in that report some good things to kind of explain the definition of investigation. So we investigate to understand these underlying causes of pavement failures. 81% of the respondents, the state DOTs that they surveyed, and please fill out the surveys if you get them. I don't like surveys. When I get them at home, I just throw them away. But when I was at ODOT, I always filled them out because sometimes I ask surveys, and for me, they really mean something. So to get meaning, you have to have participants, and meaningful participants. So don't be the person that doesn't get listed in a survey. That's kind of embarrassing. But collect your data to support development, calibration, performance standards. Well, when the SuperPave Mechanistic Empirical Design Guide, or Darwin ME, or whatever you want to call it now, came out, we had these projects where we did these calibrations, so 43%. Third one's to collect data to support investigation, long-term effects of traffic environment. Of course, that report also not only flexible pavement, but also rigid pavements. So that's a good guide for both pavement types. Understand the factors to exceptional pavement performance. Well, there's the one I never get a call on, say, come tell us why this performed so well. It just kind of, well, it did good, we think it did, but everybody that laid it is dead now. So the other one here is agency does not perform the forensic investigation. That's probably why we do more at OU than ever before, because ODOT doesn't have the personnel to do these investigations. And then other covers other reasons, whatever. And there's some additional reason to support studies conducted as part of accelerated pavement tests, so that NCAT, to assist development of repair techniques. We just did an investigation looking at that. They say, well, we did this forensic investigation, we recommend this brand new technology, but it hasn't been done in Oklahoma. So, well, like good researchers, we want to say, well, let's do this, investigate this as part of another project, and we did that. So another thing, you might want to evaluate a new product, and ODOT used to have a mechanism for that. Well, we've got this brand new product, you spray it on the pavement, and you never have to rehabilitate it. It's just magic. Well, we want to investigate that, right? So that's a good way to do a forensic investigation. So keep your mind open on all these reasons we do investigations, and in that one case I want to cite, is there one or more of those cases where it would have fit in there of what a forensic investigation is? And so the other one there is evaluate existing pavement and properties for rehabilitation. That's kind of what I look at finally in an investigation. I say, well, we figured out kind of some leading causes of what might be the problem. Let's go to the future and see if we can figure out how to make it longer and economical. I mean, really, civil engineering, we want to use an economical solution. We could build, a 24-foot pavement. It'll last a long time, but we don't want to really waste that much money, so it has to be reasonable. Keep your mind open. So here's the ODOT task process. Main thing from this, the blue form, the district level at ODOT would form that, or they might call up OU or OSU or whoever they want to look at this, say, we got this issue here, we want you to do it as a service or as a forensic investigation, and here's the project, and they can start that process, and then ODOT would finish that blue form, and then once it's approved, signed by ODOT, then the yellow form would be completed by whoever helped with that blue investigation, blue form, or is going to do that. This map down here is just the ODOT district levels. Some of you may not know that. And then we get to the end, we get the final report. You can see all that. Okay, here's some of the past projects. I'm not going to read through all these, but they have a task order number, usually a district that's doing it. If you see 9, that just means the central office, like maybe materials division, wanted to look at this. And so we have the title, which kind of explains it, and then the investigative tools that was used on it, and then the dates that we finish the report and where we're at on that. So I'm going to talk about this one that's highlighted on US 412 up by Perry on I-35. It's about 6 miles west, and then you come back about 2 miles eastbound, and that's the area that we investigated. And I'll kind of highlight that, and that's what I'm going to talk about for most of the rest of this presentation. And there's some more. Okay, so in that NCHRP report, these tables and flexible pavement you want to look at, and it's real easy. They have a matrix where you have causes here in the columns, and then across the titles you have, well, what could cause the problem, right? Could be mixed design, could be binder content, could be an issue with a paver. So if you look at this, you really get a good idea of where to start in your investigation. And then this table 2.4 with some example of data that you might want to look at. Table 4.1, non-destructive tests. You know, there's another one of those acronyms. And then 6.2 is the example laboratories. Remember, this is a guideline of laboratory tests that you want to look at. Okay, so here's some of those tests that we do. We use a 10-foot or 12-foot straight edge looking at rut depths. We have this face dipstick that ODOT loaned us that we can look at rutting and IRI, rutting in longitudinal and transverse directions. Seismic cone, Dr. Jim Nevels ran this for us on this project, US 412. We have ground penetrating radar. I think that's 1,000 megahertz antenna that they're using on our OU team. PayVision 3D, you probably saw that out in the parking lot. And we've also used that PAVE, that's the PAVE 3D 8K that's out there in the parking lot as well. And the FWD, we use Dynatest. This one is from Texas Transportation Institute that we used on another project. We used Jill's FWD in another project. So we have these investigative tools, non-destructive, destructive tests. You can read all about those. And we kind of like to start from the soil. If we think something like we're seeing dips and waves on the road, you're driving down the road, that's a problem, right? We might want to investigate. Is that an asphalt problem or is it a subgrade problem? So we might want to do some soil borings. And we might want to do some roadway cores just to look at that. If we want to look through the pavement, the soil under the pavement, we want to take the core out first, and the core is a very valuable tool. Okay, so here's the ground penetrating radar, and we have this core here that we calibrated from. And you kind of see this delaminated layer. You see that down in there, and you see how that correlates to the changes in color in the GPR. And then you kind of see that color plot over there. So If you did a bunch of that, you would have a pretty good idea of how thick the pavement was and where that delamination occurs. If you see a delamination, that's going to cause a big problem. This is TTI's fast GPR, which they can go highway speeds on this and give you a running look at your thickness and some of those deflections. So you want to use this on a bigger project looking at the bigger extents, and you don't need traffic control for that. This is a paved 3D 8K I showed earlier, some data that we get from OSU that runs this for us. And you can look at rutting, IRI, and some other things. And then this is the TTI's fast FWD. We did this on I-35, State Highway 7 there by Davis, looking at I-35 and State Highway 5. And there again, that synergy dovetailing where we looking at ODOT's Hawkeye data that they have, and we'll correlate that to what we found here. The picture there on the right is the calibration of that. And this test took about 20 seconds. They did 2 drops, 9,000 KSI, 9,000 pounds. And we had like 3 ODOT crash attenuating trucks behind it. And so it was a very safe operation, went pretty fast, every 1/10 of a mile. It's kind of dropping there. There's where I was watching it go. You can see these on the PDF. Okay, so here's the core test. Now, one thing I want to be clear, when you take a core and you want to look at volumetric properties, gradation, binder content, density, or what air voids, generally density is just pavement density. Do not take out the core, the aggregate particles that have been cut on the sides. I've seen some people do that. When you do that, you decrease gradation, your coarse aggregates, you get a finer aggregate, and with fine aggregate, higher surface area, higher binder content. So just split or combine that whole core and test that for volumetrics. Here we're using the Hamburg rut test, looking at a stripping inflection point and some other parameters that was developed by TTI that we use this. So we look at rutting. You see this is very good rut resistance, well below the 12.5. But look on the right here, and you see the flexibility index, the Illinois test method. And this should be less than 8. So all of those are less than 8 except for one. And then we look at volumetric property, permeability, see if it's very permeable, water get in there. So just some of the tests. And that's a US 412 project and the location. And the pavement there, you see the alligator cracking, and you see why the concern is there. And then that's looking eastbound there on the left side. You see the alligator cracking throughout. And there's some transverse cracking, and of course, because of the traffic load and the alligator cracking, you have additional rutting. And so we can look through the sections here, and we've looked at this and pavement ME. That's the structure of the pavement. FWD tests and Google Earth can be a valuable tool to set up your locations for sampling. We go out there and mark them with a GPS, and then we mark them here, which is a good thing to have. Do asphalt cores. We did 14 on this investigation. And there's some of the tests that we performed. Additional tests, the falling weight deflectometer. We used the GILS FWD equipment for this one. And the test results, normalized W1 deflections, we're looking at that. So the pavement was not structurally adequate, very low modulus, as you can see in that upper right plot. Am I in trouble now plotting all these? Too complicated? I hope not. Hope it means something to you. Okay, so here's the paved 3D, like I said, for this specific project. And you can get a running average. And the data that we get from OSU, you can put your mouse cursor over and get the exact data points if you want to break that up and do additional analysis. There's the US 412, and you see all these delaminations. Yes, it's pretty thick pavement, but when you have that much delaminations, you're going to get that reflected. And you kind of see that in the GPR reading there as well. You see all those delaminations. That's a big problem. Essentially, I recommend you remove and replace when you see that. And remember the low FWD, so this correlates. We've had 2 sets of tests tell us there's a big problem here. Not just, oh, okay, it's alligator cracked. Well, why is it? And we see more delaminations here, and you can actually see it in your core hole. As you pull it up, you could get a camera to go down in there, but that's pretty easy to see from that picture on the right. And there's more of that. And there's one core on the right, we couldn't even get out of the road. It just came out like gravel. So, okay, we could look at other things. There's a thickness. Okay, we gotta do soil tests, right? We want to look, see if the soil could have caused some of this. So we looked at compute CBR and modulus values. So soil classifies A76, and then there's Dr. Neville's seismic cone penetration test vehicle. And there's some results from that. So we didn't find any problem with a subgrade. That's good subgrade support. Test for soil sulfates, less than 8,000 is good, so all good there. If we saw some dips and rolls in the pavement, we might want to be sure we check for sulfates, but wasn't the case here. Density is pretty low, so these alligator crackings, you'd have to go back to construction records and look at that. But for pavement this old, density should have been a lot higher. So with low density, oxidizes more chances of cracking. So kind of verified that. And so we used another cracking test called Illinois Flexibility Index test, IFIT. And look at all those numbers. Remember earlier I showed you it should be 8 or above on that other project, and this one, not even a whole number. So that very much verifies that what we saw visually, we saw in the test as well. And true performance grade, 112, that's extremely high. So highly oxidized test through this DSR test that we looked at. So both of those very, very much verify the field observation. There again, very good rut resistance, as you would expect. We're trying to balance things and we want performance, and well, it is rut resistance, but we had ruts. Why? Well, when you get a lot of fatigue cracking and you have those delaminations, you have settlement, so that's why that happened. So you want to make conclusions at the end of your report, and we found that the subgrade soil was sound. The pavement was highly oxidized for several reasons that I showed. Delamination and stripping were significant. Resistance to rutting due to that Hamburg rut test. So due to this highly cracked surface, we expect it could damage the subgrade if you did the do-nothing approach. So we want to look at some life cycle cost analysis options so we can do a more economical temporary fix on it. We mill 1/2 inches, fill with 1/2 with a S5, which is like a 3/8 inch nominal maximum size aggregate with a polymer grade binder suitable for that traffic level. And so we rated these as options ODOT might want to choose and ranking from least to most costly. So in summary, we have in a forensic investigation, we have destructive, non-destructive tests, various other services we do in these task orders, which might be called a forensic investigation from the definitions I gave earlier from the NCHRP report, but it might be a little bit different. So we do those other things for ODOT. So many lessons can be learned from these investigations. You really need to visit the site, not just on a camera. I don't know how many times I've driven up on a project and I see a problem that really wasn't evident in the pictures. follow the guidelines. Remember the art and science of problem solving, so follow that science, but also allow your mind to be open to accept other possibilities. Be methodical. And with that, if you email me, and please do if you have any questions, be sure to use my middle name in there because there is another Kenneth Hobson at OU. I always get called Dr. Hobson, and I'm going, I'm not a doctor. So feel free to contact me. Have you opened your mind? Any questions? Okay, I either did really well or very bad.